June 1961, Moab, Utah. The county dedicates its war memorial on the courthouse lawn. A slab of red granite goes up with the names of the local dead cut into the face of it. 58 names, 2 wars. The whole county comes out in its Sunday clothes to see them. Webb stands at the back of the crowd and reads down the list and does not find his brother. Daniel Webb was killed in the Ardennes in the winter of 1944. His name is not on the stone. Here is the story. Moab sits in Red Rock Country in the southeast corner of Utah, a small town strung along the Colorado River where the canyons come down to the water. In the early summer of 1961, a film company is working out in the rock west of town, a western, men on horses against the red cliffs. And the town has gotten used to the trucks and the camera lights and the tall man who plays the lead. He keeps to himself between setups, drinks his coffee black, and says little, and the people of Moab have decided they like him for it. On the last Saturday in June, the county holds the dedication it has been planning for 2 years. The memorial stands on the courthouse lawn under a new flag, 50 stars, because the 50th state had come into the Union, and the new flag was not yet a year old, as new as the stone. There are folding chairs on the grass, and a high school brass band, and a gold star mother in the front row with her hands folded and her chin up. The committee has asked the tall man from the film company to read the honor roll aloud. It will mean something, they think, to hear those names read in a voice the whole country knows. He says yes. He does not make a speech. He stands at the stone with the typed list in his hand and his hat off, and he reads the names the way you would read them in a church, slow, one at a time, letting each one stand a moment in the air before he goes to the next. 58 names. Boys from the high school, 2 sets of brothers, a father and a son. He reads every one of them, and he does not hurry, and when a name is hard he says it carefully, because somewhere in those chairs is the family it belongs to. When he is done, the band plays and the people stand, and it is a good day, the kind of day a town keeps. But there is a man at the back who has not sat down the whole time. John Wayne notices him because the man is the only one not looking at the stone the way the others look at it. The others look at it the way you look at a thing that is finished and right. This man looks at it the way you look at a thing that is wrong. He is near 60, lean and burned brown by 40 years of sun, in a clean-pressed shirt buttoned to the throat, and a good dark coat gone shiny at the elbows. A rancher's hands turning his hat slowly around and around the brim. When the crowd begins to thin, he walks up to the granite and runs one finger down the cut names, down the W's, looking for something. His finger stops. There is no Webb on the stone. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. Wayne watches him from the courthouse steps. He could let it go. A man reads a memorial and goes home. That is what a memorial is for. But this man does not go home. He stands there with his hand flat on the sun-warm stone and his head down. And the band packs up around him. And after a while, Wayne comes down off the steps and crosses the grass to him. "You looking for a name?" Wayne says. "It is not a question." "My brother." The man does not turn from the stone. Daniel Webb. He's not here. He serve? He served. Webb takes his hand off the granite, slow. He went over in 44, 19 years old. He's out there somewhere in Belgium, with a lot of other boys, in ground that was never marked. He's just not. He stops and looks down the long list of cut names. 58 names on that stone. Some of them I went to school with. Good boys, every one of them, and they belong there. But my brother's not on it, and there's a reason they left him off. He turns at last and looks at Wayne. And the reason is a lie. They sit on the courthouse steps in the late sun, and the old man tells it. Webb raised Daniel. Their mother died when the boy was 4 and their father 2 winters after. And Harlan was a grown man near 30 by then, with a ranch to hold together. So he held the ranch together and raised his brother both, and never thought of it as a hard thing because there was no one to say it to. He taught the boy to ride and to rope and to keep his word once it was given. Daniel grew up tall and easy and well-liked all over the county. When the war came, he went, the way they all went, and he wrote home in pencil on lined tablet paper every week he could find a minute. The last letter came in December of 1944. Harlan still has it. The boy wrote that it was cold and that he was eating fine and that his outfit was holding a line near a river in Belgium, and not to worry. And he wrote one line that Harlan has read 10,000 times in the years since. "Don't worry about me, Harlan. I'll come on after." Then, in January, the telegram. But the telegram did not say killed. The telegram said missing. Missing in action. And missing is a cruel word to hand a man, because missing leaves the door open a crack. And a man will stand at a cracked door for years, listening, sure he hears footsteps on the road. And then, Harlan says, and his voice goes flat, a boy from this town came home whole, in 45. He'd been in Danny's company near the end, and he told it around, at the feed store, at the filling station, after church, that when the Germans broke through that winter, Danny's outfit had to fall back across a draw, and that Danny, the old man's jaw works. He looks at his hands. He said Danny ran, said he didn't hold his place. Said that's the reason he's missing and not buried proper. That he ran off into the snow and the cold took him out there somewhere, alone, and that's why there's no grave. You believe that? I knew my brother. Harlan looked straight ahead at the stone. I raised that boy from 4 years old. He never once ran from a thing in his life. Not a horse, not a fight, not a chore he hated, but knowing a thing in your own chest and proving it to a committee are two different animals. I've got no paper that says different. The Army never sent me one word but missing. 16 years now. 16 years of one boy's story going around a small town, and a word like missing hanging over it. He turns his hat in his hands. That's enough. That's enough for a committee to leave a name off a stone. They didn't even say it ugly. The fellow with the clipboard, the committee man, with his typed-up list and his Legion pin, he told me real polite that they couldn't cut a name with a question mark on it. Couldn't put my brother next to the boys they were sure of. He stops. Sure of. Like sure was something a man could buy at the hardware store. Have you ever carried the truth about somebody you loved, carried it in your chest for years, and had no piece of paper in all the world to prove it? It does a thing to a person. It makes them go quiet in a way that looks, from the outside, like they have given up and agreed. When what they really are, underneath, is just tired. Tired all the way down. Wayne does not say anything for a long while. He looks at the stone, and at the 58 names the town was sure of, and at the empty granite below them where there was still room. Then he asks if he can see the letter. Harlan brings it out the next evening, to the camp in the Red Rock where the film company is working. It comes wrapped in a clean handkerchief inside his coat. It is soft as cloth, with 16 years of handling, the pencil gone silver gray, the creases worn clean through so the page is in 4 pieces held together by habit. Wayne stands by a work light and reads it, and he reads the last line twice. I'll come on after. He didn't run, Wayne says. No, sir, he did not. A man can find out a thing like this. Wayne folds the letter back along its old creases, careful as a man handling something that might come apart. There's a record of it somewhere. There's always a record. The Army doesn't lose a boy and write nothing down. It writes it down, and then it files it where nobody ever looks again. That's a different thing from gone. He hands the letter back. What outfit did they send him over with? Harlan tells him. The division, the regiment, the company. Wayne writes it on the back of a call sheet, in pencil, in the work light. He could have handed the letter back and said he was sorry, and meant it, and that would have been the end of a kind thing. He could have pressed some money into the old man's hand for his trouble and a good word, and sent him home down the dark road. And most men would have, and no one would have thought the less of them. But instead he keeps the division and the regiment and the company folded in his shirt pocket. And that night, after the camp goes quiet and the generators shut down, he borrows a writing tablet and a box of envelopes from the production office, sets a single lamp on the plank table in his quarters, and begins to write. He shoots by day. He writes by night. He has the kind of contacts a man earns the slow way. making service pictures and visiting bases for 15 years. Sergeants he ate chow with, officers who walked him through their units, a colonel or two who owes him nothing but answers his letter anyway because of whose name is at the bottom of it. He writes them out by hand, in a plain square hand, at the plank table in his shirt sleeves, with the hat pushed back, night after the day's shooting. And he asks the same plain thing every time. There's a boy listed missing out of the winter of '44. There's good reason to think the record on him is wrong. Who do I write to get his file pulled and read? Then he waits, because that is the thing a letter makes a man do. A letter takes its days to cross the country, and the answer takes its days to come back, and in between there is nothing to do but shoot the picture and watch the mail. The replies come in over the next weeks, postmarked from posts and offices all over the map, in different hands and on different paper, and most of them say some version of the same thing. Try St. Louis. The whole paper history of every man who ever served is kept in St. Louis, they tell him, and the files out of '44 are all there, intact. And a man with a reason and some patience can write and ask to have one read out. So Wayne writes to St. Louis, and he gives them the reason. He gives them the division and the regiment and the company and the boy's name, Daniel Webb, and the date on that last pencil letter, and he asks them to find what the lieutenant wrote. Somebody wrote down what happened at that draw. Find me the page. It takes weeks, and then it takes months. A letter goes out, and a month goes by, and a clerk writes back asking for a service number Wayne does not have. So he writes again with what he does have and waits the month out once more. The picture wraps, and the company strikes the camp and goes home to California. And Wayne stays on it from there. At a desk at night the same as before. The same patient questions, in the same plain hand, to one office and then another. And the file comes up. There is an after-action report in it. It was dictated from a hospital bed in the spring of 1945 by a wounded lieutenant, taken down in pencil by a clerk, typed up, filed, and never read again by a living soul for 16 years. And it tells what happened at the draw, plain and military and without one wasted word. The company had to cross a draw under fire to pull back to a new line, and somebody had to stay on the near bank, on the machine gun, and hold the Germans off the crossing while the rest of the men got over. The lieutenant named the man who stayed. He named Private Daniel Webb, who would not leave the gun, who kept it firing while 46 men crossed the draw and lived, and who was still firing it when the line pulled back the last time, and the dark and the snow closed over the place, and no one could reach him. The lieutenant, from his hospital bed, had put the boy up for a decoration. That recommendation had been filed under a name marked missing, and a man marked missing is a loose end in a drawer. So the paper had sat in a folder for 16 years, because no living clerk had ever once thought to match the brave boy in the report to the lost boy in the telegram. They were the same boy. Nobody had ever turned both pages on the same day. 46 men crossed that draw and lived because one 19-year-old stayed behind on a gun, and his own town had been told for 16 years that he ran. Wayne does one more thing, and it is the thing that closes it. He gets the roster of the men who crossed that draw, and he runs them down one by one until he finds one still living. A man running a feed store in a small town in Nebraska, married, gone gray, who had been a scared kid on the far bank of that draw in the winter of '44. Wayne writes to him too, a plain letter to the store, and then he waits the long mail weeks again. The answer, when it comes, is in a hand that shook a little. The man writes that he has thought about the boy on that gun every single day of his life, that he is alive, and his children are alive, because that boy did not run. He writes that he will set down exactly what he saw, and swear to it in front of a notary public, and mail it to any address in the country it needs to go, and he writes that he should have done it 16 years ago, and that he has been ashamed every one of those years that he never did. The statement goes to the Army, with the lieutenant's report standing behind it, and the Army, which moves slow, but which moves, changes the record. Daniel Webb is taken off the rolls of the missing and set down at last where he had belonged the whole time, killed in action, holding his position, the Ardennes, December 1944. And the decoration the lieutenant had recommended from his hospital bed 16 years before is approved. The Bronze Star, with the small bronze V that means it was earned under fire. A letter goes to Harlan Webb, on army paper, with a seal on it, and a quieter letter goes to the county committee in Moab. The corrected record, and a carbon of his own letter to the army attached, asking that the stone be put right. Wayne asks for one thing only, and he writes it twice in the same letter to be sure it is read. He asks that his own name be kept out of all of it. His name goes on, he writes of the boy, not mine. The man who spent a season of nights at a writing desk is to be left off the paper the same way the boy was left off the stone, except this time on purpose and by his own choosing. The committee cuts the name in that autumn, when the dedication crowds are long gone and the lawn is empty. Daniel Webb, with a small star beside it. Set among the 58 boys the town had always been sure of, in the granite where there had been room for him all along. Harlan Webb lived another 19 years. He kept the army letter and the Bronze Star in a cigar box on the mantel, alongside the pencil letter that said, "I'll come on after," and on the last Saturday of every May he put on his good coat and drove into town and stood at the stone and read his brother's name among the others, out in the open, in the sun, with his hat off. The way a name is meant to be read. People who saw him there came to understand, slowly, the way a small town understands things, that the story they had been told for 16 years had been wrong. The boy who told it had long since moved away. Nobody spoke of it, but they took their hats off too. Harlan died in the spring of 1980. The ranch went to a cousin, and the cigar box went with it. The carved name stayed. For 26 years it stood on the courthouse lawn with the others, and the weather worked at all 59 names the same, and the town forgot which had been there from the first day and which had come only months later. That is the thing about a stone. Given enough years, it tells no difference at all between the easy truths and the ones a man had to fight in the dark to put there. Then, in the autumn of 1987, the County Historical Society set out to catalog the old memorial papers, 2 cardboard boxes of committee minutes and receipts and correspondence that had sat in a courthouse basement since the dedication. A woman doing the cataloging came to a thin folder marked, in a secretary's hand, War Memorial, Correspondence. And inside it she found a carbon copy of a letter from the summer of 1961, addressed to the Department of the Army. It laid out the case for one corrected name, polite, exact, and stubborn as a fence post. And it was plainly the letter that had set a record straight and put a name on a stone. It was signed at the bottom in a plain, square hand, not John Wayne. The name on the letter was Marion Morrison, born in Winterset, Iowa, in 1907, which was the name the tall man had carried for more than 20 years before the picture business gave him another one. For 26 years, not one soul had connected the letter in the basement to the man up on the movie screen, because the man had signed it with who he had been before he was anybody at all. 16 years a boy was called a coward in his own town. 46 men crossed a draw and grew old and raised their children and buried their wives, because that boy stayed on a gun in the snow. The county had been sure enough of 58 names to cut them into granite, and unsure of one, and the one they were unsure of had been the bravest of the whole list. It took a lieutenant's forgotten report and one ashamed man at a feed store in Nebraska, and a stranger bent over a writing desk in his shirt sleeves at night, asking nothing and signing a name no one would ever know, to move that one name up out of the dark and cut it into the stone where the sun could reach it every morning with the rest. Have you ever had someone finally set the record straight on the thing that mattered to you most, long after you had given up on it ever being made right at all? It does something to a person. It tells them the truth was always in there. It tells them that somebody, somewhere, went looking. A man could have read those 58 names that afternoon and gone back to his trailer and never thought of it again. And not one person on this earth would have faulted him for it. Or he could give a whole season of his nights to it, pulling a dead boy's good name back out of a 16-year-old lie, one letter at a time, and ask for nothing at the end of it but to keep his own name off of it. One of those is a kind thing to do. The other one is the measure of a man. If this story reached you, do me a favor. Pass it on. Share it with a veteran in your life. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. There are more Duke stories coming. And unfortunately, they don't make men like John Wayne anymore.